You guys, I am so excited. I don't know if I've ever shared with you on my page, but one of my most favorite prints or themes is anything and everything to do with cheetah print or leopard print. And so today we are going to make a fall welcome wreath with these super cute cheetah print pumpkins, and I can't wait. For those of you that have been here before and have created with me, thank you for coming back. I'm so glad you're here to spend some more time with me. And for all of you folks that are new to my channel, welcome, welcome. We're happy to have you. Stillwater's Wreath Designs is all about DIY front door wreath and door swag tutorials. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We've got new tutorials uploading every week. Friends, we are going to be making our wreath on a Deco mesh base. So I've got some foam pumpkins, as I showed you earlier, that we'll be adding into our wreath, a little bit of greenery, some orange Deco mesh tubing. I've got a handful of different 1.5 inch wired ribbons to add in. And today we're going to do something new to the channel. We're actually going to make our own welcome sign. This welcome sign is 16 inches in length and probably, I would say 6 to 7 inches in height at its highest point, and probably 1/4 inch thick. I actually grabbed these in bulk on Amazon. I will make sure I leave a link for these below. Speaking of materials, friends, I will leave a full materials and tool list for you below in the description of this video so that you can recreate this beauty if you'd like to do so. If as we start designing this beauty, you decide it's super cute, but you just don't want to get involved with creating it, this exact wreath will be for sale. I will leave a link for that below in the description of this video, and there will be just one available. All right, friends, let's dive in. So first things first, we need to paint our welcome sign so it can be drying while we're preparing our wreath base. And so I've just grabbed an old envelope that I've torn apart to use as a backdrop, and we're just going to get some paint on this guy really quickly. Friends, we're going to paint this with this plaid folk art home decor wax paint, and the product number is 6445. It's just like a deep chocolate color, chocolate brown. So let's get some paint slapped on this sign real quickly. So because of the color theme of our wreath, friends, I'm going to try my best, we'll see how I do, to not get any paint on the sides here. We'll see how that works out. All right, so when I paint, I usually just about 1/3 of the way through my sign here, I just put a couple of dots of paint here and there so that I don't have to dirty any dishes or dig up anything to actually hold the paint. And then I'm just going to smear that around. Just giving this a nice generous coat. We'll nearly surely have to come back in with a second coat. All right, friends, coat number 1 is on. I'm going to set this off to the side, close my paint up here, tuck my brush away, and we'll move on to the next step. All right, friends, we're going to bounce back and forth between loading our work wreath form and continuing on with our sign. And we're going to be building this on a 15-inch wired work wreath form. And if you're new to wreath making, friends, you can grab these from any online wreath making outlet. I'll leave a link for you below in the description, so you've got that if you'd like to recreate. And basically, this is just 15 inches in diameter. It is, probably 2 to 3 inches thick, and it's got 2 layers, the lower level and the upper level. And then all around our frame here, you're going to see these, what are called wire ties. And your work wreath form comes just as you see it here, already loaded with the ties. And there are 18 ties in total. That's both the upper and the lower. And so what I want you to do is the upper level set of ties point directly inwards towards the center of your wreath frame. And then the lower level, I want you to do just the opposite and point those guys outwards, so it kind of looks like a sun. Let me show you the deco mesh that we're going to be using today, friends. We're going to use 3 different types of 10-inch deco mesh. So we've got this super cute metallic-y orange. It's like a pumpkin orange, and there are threads of metallic running through that. Of course, burlap, one of my favorites. And then we've got this solid brown that's got some really thin goldish orange metallic pieces running through. We're going to use the poof and double curl method with today's wreath, friends. So go ahead and set aside the brown and orange deco mesh and pull out your burlap colored 10-inch deco mesh. And you're also going to need a ruler. Just a standard 12-inch will be just fine. All right, so let me give you a little pro tip here on deco mesh. Friends, if you've never worked with deco mesh loves to fray, and the poof and curl method is a great method to really help reduce the opportunity for this to fray. And so when we do the poof and double curl method, we always start with our poofs. And we're going to start on the lower level. Now at this point, friends, your wreath frame doesn't have a top or bottom yet, so you can start at any set of ties on your lower level. You're just going to want to have your ruler handy, and let me show you why. So the first thing we need to do is add our first bit of deco mesh into the wreath frame. And so I want you to roll out your deco mesh about 18 inches or so. And you're going to want that to be curl side down. And then you're going to place your hands at the edge of the piece of your deco mesh, and your thumbs are going to stay stationary and hold that deco mesh in place while your 4 fingers are scrunching and gathering to walk that deco mesh back into your thumbs until you have it all gathered. And then you're going to have a little bitty tail like this. Once you've got that tail, friends, I want you to go ahead and tuck that guy back under, probably 1.5 inches to 2 inches. And what that does, friends, is tuck away that raw edge to really help prevent the fray. Once you've got that gathered and your tail tucked, just go to any set of lower level ties, open those ties up into a wide V, and then you're going to take your tail of deco mesh and press that all the way down to the base of your wreath frame in the middle of that V. And then you're going to give these ties 2 tight twists to hold that guy in place. And then you're going to point them outwards, and we've just secured our deco mesh into the wreath. And so now what we need to do is make our first poof. So you're going to take your ruler and you're going to place that right on top of the ties where we've secured our mesh down. You're going to come out to the 10-inch mark. We'll be making 10-inch poofs on the lower level. Once you've identified that mark, friends, go ahead and take your hands, press down with your thumbs, and walk that mesh back into your fingers, just like we did when we started. And you've just created your first poof. So let's get this guy secured in. You're going to come to the very next set of lower level ties here, and just like before, friends, open them up into a wide V, and right where we've pinched our mesh together with our fingers, press that pinched mesh all the way down to the base at the center of that V. Give it a couple of tight twists, point those guys outwards, fluff your poof, and by fluff, you're just really kind of opening it up because it likes to get a little bit squirrely. And we've just added our first poof. We're going to do one more together, friends, and then we'll zoom ahead. So again, grab your ruler, lay it down on the most recent set of ties, come out to that 10-inch mark, and friends, it doesn't have to be perfect. Nobody's going to be measuring your poofs, I promise. And then once you've identified that 10-inch mark, go ahead and scrunch and gather your mesh, just like we did a moment ago. Go to that very next set of ties on your frame, open them into a wide V, and place your pinched mesh right down into the base of that V all the way down and give it a couple of tight twists. Point those ties outwards a little bit. Fluff out your poof, and we've just added your second poof. Go ahead and add your 10-inch poofs all the way around to the lower level only, and then I'll meet you back here when we get back to our starting point. All right, friends, it's time to add our last poof on the lower level. So we're going to add that, connecting it to where we actually started, and we're going to follow the same method. Measure out to 10 inches. Scrunch and gather your mesh into your hand to create your 10-inch poof. And then you're just going to carefully untie those ties where we added our starter point here. And as long as you're gentle with it, friends, your mesh isn't going to get too disturbed, I promise. Open it back up. Sit your last poof right on top of that starting poof. Give it a couple of tight twists. Point those guys outwards. And you've just added your last lower level poof. And so now, friends, it's time to do the exact same thing on the upper level. But the first thing we need to do is jump our mesh from the lower level to the upper level. And so what I want you to do is just identify the closest set of ties to where we're going to be making that jump. It doesn't matter if they're behind where we left off or in front of, totally matters not. And what you're going to do, friends, is grab your Deco mesh, and we're not going to make any poof. You're going to find the set of ties that's closest to where we're making the jump. In my case, it's behind. Go ahead and open them up into a wide V. And now you're just going to gather your mesh into your hands. No poofs. This is just a clean gathering of mesh. You're going to come behind those sets of ties. Pull it back around so it's fairly taut. Right down into the base of the V, just like we did when we started. And give it a couple of tight twists. Perfect. So we've just jumped from the lower level to the upper level, and now we're going to add poofs all the way around. However, this time your poofs will be 8 inches. So instead of measuring out 10 inches as we had done on the lower level, you're going to measure out 8 inches because we want to have that upper level recede a little bit towards the center, which allows that lower level to really shine. So I've just followed the same methodology that we did on the lower level. I just reduced it to 8 inches instead of 10. I'm going to that next set of ties on the upper level, adding my mesh down in, giving it a couple of tight twists, pointing those guys outwards, and we've just added our first upper level poof at 8 inches. Go ahead and add your 8-inch poofs all the way around your upper level, friends, and I'll meet you back here when we get to the last poof. All right, friends, it's time to add our very last poof, so we're going to follow the same method we've been doing. Just place your ruler down onto that most recent set of ties, come out 8 inches, scrunch and gather your mesh into your hands. And just like I mentioned on the lower level, friends, we're going to be opening up this V where we had jumped our mesh earlier and gently opening it up. And as long as we're careful, it's not going to disturb that mesh too much. Add your last poof down into that base all the way to the center of that V. Give it a couple of tight twists. Point those guys outwards, and we've just added our last upper level poof. So grab a good pair of scissors because now it's time to trim off the excess bits of our mesh here, friends, and we need to be careful and mindful that we're cutting the appropriate mesh. And so what I do is just kind of gather it tautly in my hand. I take my left hand and place it behind the mesh to make sure I'm not accidentally cutting something I shouldn't. I'm going to cut up about 1.5 inches to 2 inches to give it a tail here so that it doesn't come undone. And I'm just gently cutting using my left hand as a barricade to make sure I don't cut something I'm not supposed to. And we've just cut off that excess roll of burlap mesh. All right, friends, so as you can see, we've got a good amount of coverage, but it's still pretty light and airy, so it's a good base, but we've still got a lot of work to do. However, before we continue on loading our mesh into our wreath, let's go ahead and set this aside and grab our welcome sign to put on that second layer of paint. When you put on your second layer of paint, friends, it takes far less. So I'm going to follow that same method I did earlier and just add a few dots of paint throughout my sign, doing about 1/3 of it at a time and using a little bit less because it takes less. And we'll get our second coat added on here. I'm going to speed through this part, friends, but go ahead and add your second coat and I'll meet you back here. All right, friends, I've just gotten my second coat of paint added onto my welcome sign. So we'll set this off to the side once again to do some drying, and then we'll go back to building out our mesh base. All right, friends, so go ahead and grab your 3 rolls of Deco mesh. So we've still got a partial roll of our burlap and of course our brown and our orange. You're also going to need to grab a good pair of scissors and a chip clip or a clothespin or something, and I'll show you why here in just a moment. And remember I mentioned earlier that we have 18 ties in total on our wreath frame. And so we're going to add 2 curls to every single tie on the entire wreath frame, friends. And we're going to add 1 burlap curl to every single set of ties. And then we're going to alternate the colors between the brown and the orange. So you're going to need 18 cuts of your burlap, 9 cuts of your brown, and 9 cuts of your orange. Go ahead and cut 18 pieces of the burlap, 9 pieces of the brown, and 9 pieces of the orange at 10 inches in length, and I'll meet you back here. All right, friends, let me show you how to make our curls. Go ahead and grab a piece of Deco mesh, and as you can see, your mesh wants to curl in on itself, and you want your mesh to be curl side up. And then you're just going to start at one end and roll this entire piece of mesh into a cylindrical tube. Just keep rolling all the way to the end of your piece until you've got a curl or what looks like a tube, and it's probably 1 inch to 1.5 inches in diameter in the center. Doesn't need to be perfect. Of course, then it flares out a bit in the ends, at the ends. Now, once you've made your first curl, go ahead and take your clip and just pinch that guy together right in the center, just like that, and that just holds that in place for you. Set that off to the side, and then we'll grab our second color. I just happened to grab orange. So again, you want your piece to be curl side up, and starting at one end, just start rolling this guy into a curl or what looks like a tube. So I'm just rolling all the way to the end of my piece until I've got a tube, like so. Once you've got that tube or curl, you're going to lay one on top of the other, friends, and then coming back into your wreath base, it doesn't matter if you start at the top or bottom, you're going to give a curl to every single set of ties. And you're just going to form them into a loose X, just like I did here. You're going to come to any set of ties, press those curls all the way down to the base, and give them a couple of tight twists, like so. And you've just added your first 2 curls into your wreath base. So our next set, friends, we'll do burlap and brown, then burlap and orange, then burlap and brown, and so on. So go ahead and make 2 curls, adding them into every single set of ties, and I'll meet you back here. You guys, just look how cute this base is coming out. We've now added our poofs and 2 curls per each set of ties, and this beauty is really coming to life. At this point, It's every bit of 26 inches in diameter and probably 8 to 10 inches in depth, just depending on where we measure. Let's go ahead and set this off to the side, and we're going to grab our welcome sign back out and move on to the next layer of paint. All right, friends, so for the next layer of paint, I would definitely say this point is optional. So you can leave it this solid brown. It would look super, super cute just as it is. But if you've got a steady hand, I would encourage you to go ahead and add some cheetah print on top of this. I'm going to walk you through, but you're going to need a chiseled paintbrush that's fairly small, as you can see there. And then I'm going to use, again, the Folk Art Home Decor chalk paint, and this is an oatmeal color. We're going to use a teeny tiny amount, friends. So I'm actually going to use an old pill bottle lid. I keep these for crafts just such as these. And I'm literally just going to put a dollop of paint in there because we're going to use very, very little. And so when you think about cheetah print, it almost looks like a sloppy, fat comma. So it's a little bit of a circle with a tail, and it doesn't really have any specific direction or flow. So just find a spot on your sign. And as you can see, I'm just putting a dollop of paint with the tip of my chisel. And I'm just dotting it. And then I'm giving it kind of like a comma, a teeny tiny tail. And I don't want my dollops to be the exact same size, nor do I want my tails going in the same direction. So I'll zoom in with the camera here so you can see these guys. Again, if you don't have a steady hand or you don't feel comfortable adding in the cheetah print, this step is totally, totally optional. You could leave it brown and it's still going to be adorable. Friends, go ahead and add your cheetah print throughout your welcome sign, and I'll meet you back here. All right, guys, it's time to add our last layer of paint, and now we're going to use just a plain matte black. This is actually apple barrel, and you're most definitely going to need to continue using this chisel brush, and you literally need maybe 1/4 teaspoon, so just a teeny tiny dollop will do. So I literally, if you can see this in this medicine cap, friends, it might be as big around as a dime. Now you're going to take your chisel brush, we're going to dip it in the paint and have minimal amount, and we're just going to outline the side of our cheetah print kind of haphazardly. You don't want a wide brush stroke. Let me try this on a bigger one here. We'll hope I don't smudge it. And you're going to put that kind of right on top, and you're not making a brush stroke. You're just going down and back up with your chisel brush. So I'm really dabbing more than I am anything. And you can add it on 2 sides, 1 side, whatever moves you. Just remember to dab, don't brush. So give some cheetah print highlight here to every one of your cheetah spots or your leopard spots, and I'll meet you back here. All right, friends, we've got our welcome sign totally finished at this point, so now we need to set this guy back off to the side to dry, and we'll move on to the next step. So I've pulled my wreath frame back up here just for a quick reference point, friends. So while our other welcome sign is drying, I pulled out another one just to kind of show you how this is going to lay. So our welcome sign is going to be laying kind of in this bottom right hand corner, not all the way down. But if this were a clock, somewhere around the 4 o'clock mark is where we'll be securing this in. And so we're going to add a pretty bougie bow in the upper left hand corner, and then some tails and some mesh tubing throughout. So let's go ahead and make our bow and get that guy ready to add in the upper left hand corner. Guys, I'm going to get my hand bow thrown together pretty quickly here just to save us some time on this lengthy video. But let me show you the ribbon that I'm going to be using. So I've actually got 4, and they are all 1.5 inch ribbon. And remember, we're going to be adding in some cheetah print foam pumpkins. And so I grabbed a 1.5 inch black velvet, the 1.5 inch solid brown, the 1.5 inch orange and burlap glitter, and the 1.5 inch glitter cheetah print. Go ahead and grab whatever ribbons you would like that coordinates with your wreath, friends. Just make sure that whatever type of ribbon you choose, it is in fact wired. That's what elevates your wreath over the top and really gives your bow lots of personality and depth, and you can ensure then that it's going to hold its shape. So bear with me real quickly here while I make the bow, and I'll meet you right back here. All right, friends, I've thrown my bow together. It's not really fluffed out yet. I've just got 2 loops and 2 tails of each ribbon type, and I used 4 ribbon. So let's bring our wreath frame back up here, and we'll get this bow added in. And we're just going to use these ties, friends, to secure this guy down. So just make sure that your loops and your tails are going in the right direction. Add it to the center of those leftover ties. Give them 2 or 3 tight twists, and then grab your snips and trim off those excess bits of ties. You won't need them anymore. And then just take that nub and push it towards the back so it's not really seen. I've already angle cut my ends. You can sure trim them how you would like. Just going to do a real quick rough fluff here, just so we can see where all these beauties are laying. All right, friends, we'll probably nearly need to trim up our tails, but we'll wait until the end to do that. And now we're going to make some tails, some longer tails for this bottom right-hand corner. And I'm just going to use the black, the brown, and the cheetah. So I'll actually use my wreath here as my measuring point. We'll have this black in the back, and then we'll make every piece a little bit smaller by a couple of inches or so. And remember, friends, nobody's going to be measuring these, so no need to worry about perfection. And I'm just going to lay one on top of the other so that they're centered. Like so. And again, not looking for perfection, guys. Then you're going to either eyeball to find that middle, or you can fold your ribbon stack in half to identify. Once you found that center point, just kind of pinch and pleat. Fold that into a V, kind of over your thumb there. And then we're going to add that guy right down into the base of this set of ties and give it a couple of tight twists. And at that point, we're done with this set of ties. So go ahead and trim off those remaining bits and curl that down under. Excuse me. And now we're just going to angle cut our ends here. And once you've trimmed your ends, just take your fingers and one at a time, run them over each tail, and that's going to give them a cute curve or a bump and just give them some height. And you can separate them out a bit if you like. Friends, if you've not already done so, go ahead and plug in your hot glue gun. Let's get that guy ready to go. All right, friends, let's jump on to the next step. So remember when we added our double curls into our wreath, we added burlap and orange to some and burlap and brown to others. And so we should have equal parts. We're going to add ribbon tails into the remaining ties of our wreath, friends. So we're going to add one tail to every single tie that doesn't have a bow or the longer tails in it. And we're going to be using the black and the leopard. And you want your tails to be 9 inches in length. So we've used 2 sets of our ties, which leaves us 16 remaining ties. And so you're going to need 8 tails in the black, 8 tails in the leopard at 9 inches in length. So go ahead and cut your ribbon tails. I'm going to meet you back here. All right, friends, I've cut 8 pieces and angle trimmed the ends of the leopard print or cheetah print, and same with the black. Now, what we're also going to use, something new, is orange Deco mesh tubing. You can get this at Walmart, on Amazon, also at Dollar Tree when you can find it. So let me tell you what we're going to do with our tubing, friends. If you've not ever worked with Deco mesh tubing, it will stretch out and flatten pretty easily. So when you're working with it, don't pull it too tightly. Just let it maintain its natural shape. And what we're going to do for the remainder of our wreath, friends, is add 1 ribbon tail to every set of ties, with the exception of where we've added our bow and where we've added our extra long tails. I'm going to add a black tail to every set of ties that's got the orange curl. And to add your tie in, friends, you're just going to take your piece of ribbon, either eyeball or fold your ribbon in half to identify that center point, pinch and pleat it in the middle so it looks like a men's bow tie, fold it into a loose V over your thumb like so. Come over to the set of ties where every orange curl is, if you're using the black ribbon. Give it 2 or 3 tight twists. And then you can take your snips, trim off the excess bit of those ties, curl those tie bits back and out of the way, and fluff out your tail. And by fluff out your tails, friends, I really just mean pull them away from the center of your wreath so it forms a loose V, and run your fingers over it, just like that. Now, when we add our cheetah print or leopard print tail in, we're also going to add a bow made out of this orange tubing. And by bow, it's really not that complicated, friends. You're going to take your tubing, lay it right on top of your tail. You're going to fold it over onto itself twice, remembering not to pull too tightly because we want that tubing to maintain its shape. And you want it to basically be the same length as your tail. So we just went back and forth in a zigzag pattern. Then you're just going to scrunch and gather in the middle. We'll form it into a shape here in a minute. Come to your next set of ties, or basically you're adding these into every set of ties that has the brown curl, and place them down in the center of those ties. Give them 2 or 3 tight twists, and trim off the excess bits of those ties because you won't need them anymore. Take your fingers and just pinch those guys and curl them back out of the way. And then just leave that tubing bow alone, but go ahead and take your fingers and just make sure that that ribbon tail is in a loose V pointing away from the center of your wreath. So go ahead and add your ribbon tails into the remaining set of ties throughout your wreath, adding 1 black tail to every set of ties with the orange curl and the cheetah print and orange tubing to every set of ties that has the brown curl. And I'll meet you back here. All right, guys, it is time to add our sign. Look how cute that came out. Adorable. So let me tell you, friends, what I actually did here, because the lettering of this font isn't wide enough to support the mounting brackets that I typically used. I just grabbed my Crafter's stapler, which is kind of a petite, more delicate of a stapler, stapled floral wire stems down onto the back of the lettering, and then just gave them a couple of loose twists to keep them from sliding around. You could also hot glue and then add a little piece of ribbon on top of the hot glue just to secure that down. Totally up to you. But let's go ahead and get this guy added in. So you can of course add your welcome sign anywhere you'd like, friends. I'll be adding mine in the bottom, center, but offset to the right just a tad. And so the great thing about floral wire stems, friends, is you can poke them right through the Deco mesh and then twist them around on the back side of your wreath. So go ahead and take a couple of minutes and get your sign added in, and then we'll move on to the last step. As you can see, I've got this attached around the 2 inner rings on both sides, and I've jumped over a crossbar just to keep that from sliding around. You'll want to twist your chenille stem or floral wire stems 5 or 6 times to make sure it's not going to go anywhere at approximately 80% tension. You don't want it to suck too deeply down into your wreath. Once you've twisted your wire ties or chenille stems several times, go ahead and cut off those ends. We don't need those. And then just grab your needle nose pliers and close those ends up so that they're not sharp, and then curl them back under, kind of back into your wreath, and that'll just keep someone from grabbing those ties or accidentally scratching their door. And then last but not least, friends, I like to take my hot glue gun, and at one of those anchoring points, I just put a dollop of glue just to help ensure that that guy's not going to slide around or go anywhere. All right, friends, go ahead and take just a quick minute here to fluff up those ribbon tails and loops. We've had this poor wreath going every which way, and so it's gotten a little bit of a squish here in our process. So I'm just going to revive these guys so they're not flat. Oh my goodness, you guys, this is so stinking cute. I am a sucker for all things cheetah print. All right, last step, friends. I've grabbed a bag of various sizes of cheetah or leopard print velvet pumpkins from Hobby Lobby. And we're going to add a few into our wreath here, and that will be our final touch. Now, depending on the types of pumpkin embellishments you use, you may or may not need to anchor them down with some floral wire. These are super lightweight. I would say that they're foam, just covered in some velvet cloth and then painted with cheetah spots, so they're just light as a feather. So in my case, I can just secure these guys down with some hot glue. If you've grabbed heavier pumpkin embellishments, you'll want to use a floral wire, poke it through the back of your pumpkin, and then tie that around your wreath frame just to make sure those guys don't go anywhere. And so the bag that I have here, friends, actually came with an assortment of 6. I've got 3 of these little guys that are probably 2 inches in diameter, and 3 of these big guys that are nearly 4 inches in diameter. So give me just a second here to dry place and see where we want to add them in. All right, I'm pretty happy with that placement, so I'm just going to grab my hot glue gun, add a really generous dollop, probably 3 or 4 full squirts of hot glue. Then I'm going to press that guy right down where I want it. And if you're just using the hot glue method, friends, if you've got lightweight pumpkins like I do, you're going to want to hold those guys in place for a good 30 seconds or so and really just give them time to grab. Let me just show you really quickly, even though I don't need to because my guys are lightweight, how you can quickly just use a piece of floral wire to attach heavier things into your wreath. Anytime, friends, here's a little pro tip for you. I have a floral stem with heavy duty wires. So let me show you what this is actually the bottom of. So when you get your floral bushes, friends, they look like this. And of course, you'll trim off your florals and add them into your wreath, and then you're left with this leftover piece of stem. Friends, I always make sure I have just a small handful of these available. Let me show you why. These are wired and they're fairly heavy duty, so it's a quick and easy way to repurpose these wire stem bits to add in your embellishments. So all you need to do, friends, is grab your snips. Generally, you'll need these heavy duty guys, and just trim off one of those leftover bits. And we're going to use this leftover bit to become an anchor to attach our embellishment down into our wreath. So all I do, friends, is turn over my piece. Generally they're foam, so I'll just take my small snips or scissors, poke a teeny hole right in the center. Just add that floral stem right down in there and make sure it goes through, about halfway or half an inch to an inch. Take your glue gun. Just run some glue right around the base there, right where that floral stem meets your pumpkin, and then just add some glue to that stem. Come back to your wreath and just poke that guy right down in there. And so then you've got that stem to help anchor it down, in addition to the glue that you've put on the bottom of that pumpkin, really offering great security. And that's also super important when you've got heavier embellishments. You guys, this beauty is done. Oh my goodness, how stinking cute did it turn out? I'm going to add a picture of this hanging on a door here at the end of this video so that you can see what she looks like in place. And also remember that this specific wreath, I'll only have one available, will be for sale. And I'm actually going to do a live later today showcasing this wreath and a handful of others that I have for sale and available for purchase. If you'd like to do so, you're more than welcome to. Friends, if you enjoyed this tutorial, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps my little channel to grow. And if you're new to our channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're so happy that you all crafted with us today, and I look forward to the next time. Thanks, friends. Happy crafting.